Hello and welcome to episode 32 of the barn door restoration. Last episode I built and installed the front valance. This episode I have some of the bulkhead restored, the top half anyway. It turned out to be a bit more labor involved than I had first planned. So the bulkhead on a barn door is flat. It's kind of a distinguishing feature of a barn door. Later splits all had they either had the spare tire here, so they had a bulge for the spare tire to set in, or walk through. These are flat. Now the bulkhead is a structural item. It has a beam in the back here, and it bridges the two B pillars together, and it adds some rigidity to the body. It also supports the back of the front seat. So the bulkhead is a 0.9 millimeter steel, so 20 gauge, and the beam in the back is also 0.9 millimeter. And these two gussets, and they support the bulkhead from moving in the back there. They also support the backrest of the front seat. And they're 1.2 millimeter, or about 18 gauge. And they're just spot welded. They spot weld to the inner frame panel that extends up for the sides of this storage area. They have tabs that stick up further on the back, and they spot weld to this gusset. And then the gusset just spot welds to the bulkhead. The backrest for the seat actually hooks on these two hooks, one each side. They are 2.1 millimeter, 2.3 millimeter steel, I think. And they are spot welded to a plate. So there's a reinforcement plate here, which is 1.2 millimeter, so about 18 gauge. They're spot welded to that plate. That plate is spot welded then to the bulkhead. And the backrest, the pipe framing that it's made out of sticks out past with the flat section that slides in this. So the backrest will set in and then tip down. And you have two positions, so you can move the backrest in and out. And then it just lays against this gusset. There's also a grab rail that bolts on the back of this bulkhead. There's two bolts on each side, and they mount in here. And what there is there's a little panel that goes on the back side that has two nuts welded into it. And then it's spot welded to the bulkhead. And then there's holes on this side so that if the bolt's too long, it comes out through. So on barn doors, I had an interior in the back. So the standards and the deluxe, this is a standard. The panels were just screwed on the bulkhead on the back side. And they just basically drove screws through the upholstery panel, through the bulkhead, and they just stuck out this side. And there's 4 screw holes across the top. And there are screws down the sides. And then there's also down lower, there's screws that go across. And they just drove them through and left like little barbs of metal on this side. So it's kind of crude, but that's how they came from the factory. I did sand off the little bits of metal that are sticking out from the screw holes. I was going to leave them, and I thought, no, when I go to paint this, I'm going to rip my fingers up sanding it. So I decided to remove them. So this bulkhead was rusty, like everything else on this bus. This side over here particularly bad. There's a section here that I had to replace. These are some of the bits of the upper beam that were in it, so there wasn't a lot left. I was able to save the seat hook. So these two gussets were also quite bad at the bottom. The bottoms are rotted off. So the first process of rebuilding this, I needed to remove it from the old cab section, nose section. When I originally took the body off of this, around the edge of the roof was rotted out bad, so the roof came off. The header over the cargo doors was rotted away, so I just cut that out. And this side over here basically was non-existent. So I took the nose and the bulkhead section out as one unit. So to remove the bulkhead out of it, I was going to have to drill off the B pillars, which was going to leave no support basically for the B pillars. And the header over this left side was rotted very badly, and I knew that was just going to kink and bend if I left it. So I looked at the header over the door to see where the best spot to cut it was. And I originally thought I'd take it apart at the seam, but it was so rusty there it was going to be rebuilt anyway. So I just cut both roof rails just in front of the B pillars. So once I cut them off, it was a lot easier to work on the table to drill out all the spot welds. And the spot welds at the end of the beam. Actually, this side was rotted off, so I didn't have to deal with this side. That side I had to drill around it. Once I had it removed, I realized there were stress cracks behind the gussets at the top in this panel. And there's no easy way to fix those without removing the gussets. Now, I was already considering removing them because joining the bulkhead panel down here behind the gusset was going to be hard to get that perfect where it wraps around. And so I removed these off and then media blasted everything. Got a little layer of zinc on it to protect it. Now this side was rotted badly, so I just cut this out, and then I cut the skin for the bulkhead a little bit further back than the beam. So then I made a new beam section to replace this. I welded that in, and then made the skin to go on it. Now I was making the skin, and the skin rolls over, and it's clamped. And I made that, and I forgot about this rib that was in here because I was working from the back side. So once I realized that, I thought, oh, I'm going to have to remake the part because I figured I was going to have to put the rib in first and then form all the rest of it. But it turns out that the die I had 3D printed to match these would rub against the lip that I bent over here and just work exactly in the right position. So I put the rib in. And I was planning on pressing the ends, but there wasn't enough room to press because of this lip again. So I decided to try hand forming the end of the rib. And I hadn't done that before. And it actually worked extremely well. I didn't expect it to. So I took this panel, I put it down on a piece of steel, clamped it, and I took a chisel and I radiused the end of the chisel, about 2 millimeter radius. And with this laying down, I could take the chisel and I could actually push the metal in, flatten it down onto the steel that was there, and roll it in and get it the right shape. So I ended up using that panel. It worked out well. The hook for the seat backrest, I was able to save that. The panel it was welded to was completely rotted away, but the hook itself was rusted from the back quite a bit. So I was actually clean it out and build it up with weld. So I put a layer of weld over the back, ground it down, sanded it, and rebuilt it. Because of the indentation that's in there, and it's a really pronounced, like sharp edge to it, it was going to be quite hard to replicate that. It was going to take me much longer to make some kind of die to press that in there than it would be just to build it up with weld and regrind it down. So the gussets were rotted off at the bottom. So they have this indentation in them, and of course that needed to be replaced. And this is I think the one off of that side. You can see it's actually completely rotted away. So in order to make that shape, I pressed them in. So I used a 3D printed die to do that. And just pressed them. Now the first one I pressed, which is this one, turned out to be 4 millimeters too wide. So when you matched up the lines, it ended up being too low. Because I ran out of good filament, I printed one new die that fits this, but the other one didn't. So I took my old die I had, and I just cut 4 millimeters out of it. And then I took a piece of plate, welded a few pieces in to hold it in place. So when you pressed it in, it would keep the die from pushing sideways. And that worked quite well. So I was able to stamp out a good one and then fit it in there and bend the lips on. The 3D printed die is a huge time saver. And plus, something like this would be hard to get perfect hand forming. You could get it close, but to get it really perfect, nice shape, it's difficult. The dies work really nice. So next episode is finishing off the bulkhead. Keep watching for some video of the work being done, and also some video of the details. I did upload drawings for this to GrabCAD. of the bulkhead and the parts. Something I should point out, if there's any dimensions with question marks beside them, it's because I'm not sure if they're correct or not. There is a clean out down the bottom of this panel, and I'm not 100% sure of some of the dimensions on that, so I did put question marks on those. Thanks for the comments, I appreciate them, and thanks for watching.